Al-Huda, under the leadership of Dr. Farhat Hashmi, has evolved into a manipulative and exploitative institution that thrives on controlling the lives of its followers. The truth behind Al-Huda's rise is far darker than it appears at surface level. While many see it as a religious institution providing women with Islamic education, the reality is far more sinister. Dr. Hashmi's organization has long used a well-constructed narrative to mask its true purpose: to isolate, indoctrinate, and brainwash women into a rigid, dogmatic interpretation of Islam. From the very beginning, Al-Huda has operated with the intention of imposing extreme views on young women, not empowering them. Hashmi's strategy is clear. By positioning herself as a flawless religious authority, she has successfully cultivated a culture of blind obedience and submission. The women under her influence are often taught that their worth lies only in following the narrow, restrictive path that Hashmi has laid out for them. And those who deviate or question this path are often shamed or ostracized. Dr. Farhat Hashmi, the founder of Al-Huda, created an institution that at first glance may seem like a religious space, where women are given access to Islamic knowledge. However, the true agenda of Hashmi and her followers is far more insidious. Al-Huda's teachings quickly expanded beyond simple religious education, shaping a generation of women who were isolated from their families, peers, and the broader society. This disconnection became a hallmark of Al-Huda's control over its followers, forcing women to subscribe to a strict, often oppressive set of beliefs. Hashmi's brand of Islam is heavily influenced by Salafi and Wahhabi ideologies, which view women as subordinate and place them in the confines of domesticity, while dictating every aspect of their lives. Far from encouraging independent thought, Al-Huda demands complete compliance with its interpretation of Islam. Women are subjected to intense pressure to adhere to rigid dress codes, behavior standards, and gender roles, effectively stripping them of their autonomy and personal agency. Hashmi herself is regarded as a flawless figure, and her teachings are presented as the only valid interpretation of the Quran and Hadith. Dr. Farhat Hashmi's background offers critical insight into the mind behind Al-Huda's creation. Born on December 22, 1957 in Sargodha, Punjab, Hashmi grew up in a deeply conservative environment, heavily influenced by her father, Abdur Rahman Hashmi, a Muslim scholar and leader of the Jamaat-e-Islami Pakistan. Hashmi's educational journey began at local schools and continued at the Government College for Women in Sargodha. She went on to complete her master's degree in Arabic language from the University of Punjab, Lahore. Her religious education was also shaped by her father, who taught her the tenets of Islam at home. She then moved on to teach at the International Islamic University in Islamabad, where she later married fellow scholar Muhammad Idris Zubair. Hashmi and her husband moved to Scotland, where they enrolled in a doctorate program in Islamic studies. Her time abroad, combined with her strong academic background, set the stage for Hashmi's return to Pakistan, where she founded Al-Huda International in the late 1990s. Initially, Al-Huda's aim was to educate women on how to interpret and apply Islamic principles in their daily lives, positioning itself as an alternative to the more politicized seminars. Hashmi's non-traditional teaching style, which blended modern methods with Islamic teachings, gained traction among educated women. Hashmi, fluent in Urdu, Arabic, and English, attracted a diverse group of students, many from urban, educated families. However, her emphasis on a strict, conservative interpretation of Islamic teachings began to take hold, and as Hashmi's influence grew, she positioned herself as the definitive voice of authority. Her version of Islam, one that reinforced rigid gender roles and isolated women from broader societal interactions, became the sole path for many of her followers, creating a dogmatic environment under the guise of empowerment. As Al-Huda expanded across Pakistan and into other parts of the world, it adopted a strategy that involved not just religious indoctrination, but also psychological manipulation. Followers, particularly women, are made to feel spiritually superior for aligning themselves with Al-Huda's teachings, which simultaneously demonize other interpretations of Islam and marginalize those outside the organization. In many cases, women were not just educated in religious matters, but also conditioned to believe that their primary function in life was to obey and submit, first to Al-Huda's authority, and later to their husbands or male family members. Hashmi's teachings foster a dangerous sense of guilt in followers, who even entertain the idea of questioning the prescribed way of life. This guilt often extends beyond religious matters, invading personal decisions, relationships, and even career choices. The oppressive atmosphere within Al-Huda institutions ensures that women who question or attempt to step outside the rigid structures are met with punishment, whether it be emotional, social, or spiritual alienation. One of the most insidious aspects of Al-Huda's influence is the way it manipulates families who send their daughters to the institution. Many families, particularly those from abroad, view Al-Huda as a solution for their wayward or too westernized daughters, hoping the institution will bring them back on a more religious path. These families pay large sums of money, often in US dollars, British pounds, or Canadian dollars, for their daughters to stay in Al-Huda's facilities, believing that their daughters will be safe and receive proper religious education. However, the conditions in which these girls are placed are nothing short of exploitative. The students, who are often kept in homes belonging to Al-Huda's staff, are housed in overcrowded rooms, sometimes sharing with as many as 8 other girls in a single room. These girls are subjected to inhumane conditions, with limited access to basic amenities such as bathrooms, and forced to live in close quarters with little privacy. Despite the high fees being paid by parents, Al-Huda pockets a significant amount of money, while the girls are kept in unsanitary, uncomfortable conditions. This money, which could have been used to provide a safe and enriching educational experience for the students, instead fuels Al-Huda's expansion and further lines the pockets of Dr. Hashmi and her associates. The reality is that these families who believe they are investing in their daughters' spiritual growth are instead enabling an exploitative system that takes advantage of their trust and financial resources. One of the most disturbing elements of Dr. Farhat Hashmi's teachings is her controversial stance on marital relations, particularly her harmful views regarding the dynamics of submission within marriage. Hashmi has, on multiple occasions, made statements that have been widely criticized for promoting the idea that women must submit to their husbands under all circumstances. This viewpoint, which undermines the widely accepted understanding of mutual respect and consent in marital relationships, has raised serious concerns about Hashmi's true agenda. For a figure so influential in the lives of many women, this position has dangerous implications.
कि इस मामले में अल्लाह ने शौहर को हक दिया है और औरत पर लाजिम किया है कि वो शौहर की इताअत करे.
Women who follow Hashmi's teachings may come to believe that their bodily autonomy is secondary to their husband's desires, regardless of their own comfort or consent. This has the potential to cause significant harm to women who already face societal pressures to obey their husbands, adding to the already pervasive atmosphere of submission and subjugation that Al-Huda promotes. The fact that Hashmi holds such views and continues to be seen as an authority by her followers is deeply troubling, especially considering the vulnerability of the women who look up to her as a role model. Al-Huda's growth and its pervasive influence over the lives of its followers are a testament to its manipulation tactics. The organization's teachings have spread across the globe, and the long-term effects on its followers are becoming increasingly apparent. Former students describe how they were subjected to psychological manipulation, forced to embrace a worldview that left no room for critical thought, independent action, or personal freedom. Many have spoken out about the trauma they endured during their time at Al-Huda, from the intense emotional control to the forced isolation from friends, family, and any influence that might encourage personal growth. The former students often struggle to integrate into society after leaving Al-Huda, with some of them becoming so ingrained in its teachings that they find it difficult to adapt to the wider world outside. For these women, leaving Al-Huda is not just a physical departure from an institution. It's a psychological and emotional struggle against years of indoctrination and control. The public opinion surrounding Al-Huda has shifted dramatically as more accounts from former students have come to light. What was once seen as a prestigious educational institution is now viewed by many as a breeding ground for extremism and manipulation. People are beginning to recognize the harmful effects that Al-Huda has had on the lives of its followers, with many critics highlighting the way in which it distorts the message of Islam. Instead of promoting tolerance, compassion, and intellectual growth, Al-Huda's teachings focus on division, strict obedience, and the suppression of individuality. This has had a profound impact not just on the women involved, but also on the broader Muslim community, as Al-Huda's version of Islam becomes increasingly disconnected from the diversity of thought and practice that exists within the faith. Critics argue that Al-Huda's brand of Islam, characterized by its authoritarian nature, is a dangerous distortion of the religion, one that threatens to alienate Muslims from one another and breed intolerance in place of understanding. The relationship between Al-Huda and radical ideologies cannot be ignored. While the institution may not explicitly promote violence or terrorism, its teachings have provided a fertile ground for radicalization. Al-Huda's strict, dogmatic approach to Islam promotes an us versus them mentality, pushing women to view anyone outside the institution as morally corrupt or misguided. This mindset, coupled with the rigid structure imposed on Al-Huda's followers, creates an environment where dissent is not tolerated and any form of progressive thinking is discouraged. The psychological conditioning that takes place at Al-Huda has long-lasting effects, with some women going on to support extremist views, contributing to the broader problem of radicalization. The extent to which Al-Huda has contributed to this issue remains difficult to quantify, but the patterns are clear. The institution's teachings have bred a generation of women who are cut off from the broader world and consumed by a singular, narrow interpretation of Islam. Al-Huda's impact on the broader Muslim world is undeniable. It has contributed to the rise of a puritanical, intolerant version of Islam that is at odds with the faith's core values of peace, tolerance, and coexistence. By pushing women into rigid roles and making them submissive to authoritarian teachings, Al-Huda has played a key role in distorting the true spirit of Islam. Dr. Farhat Hashmi's interpretation of the religion has isolated countless women from their families, friends, and the world, creating a generation of women who view the outside world with suspicion and disdain. Al-Huda's brand of Islam has fueled the culture of extremism that has taken root in many parts of the world, with followers prioritizing obedience to a narrow set of beliefs over the rich intellectual and spiritual traditions that Islam has to offer. It is clear that the damage caused by Al-Huda is far-reaching, affecting not just its followers, but also the broader Muslim community. In conclusion, the influence of Al-Huda and Dr. Farhat Hashmi is a deeply troubling example of how a religious institution can manipulate and control its followers. Al-Huda's teachings promote a rigid, authoritarian view of Islam that is harmful to both women and society at large. The exploitation of young women, the lack of transparency regarding their living conditions, and the financial exploitation of families are just some of the ways in which Al-Huda operates as a damaging, cult-like institution. The broader consequences of Al-Huda's rise are clear. It has distorted the message of Islam, alienated countless women, and contributed to the culture of radicalism that has plagued parts of the Muslim world. The need to confront and challenge Al-Huda's teachings has never been more urgent, as the damage caused by this institution continues to ripple throughout society.